y'all to the VRNation Station. We're diving deep into vacation.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the VRNation Station podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Hansen. Once again, I have great podcast lined up today. I'm very excited. This is something that's been long coming from the VRNation conference. I have two guests that are not your ordinary property managers. Sometimes I can't believe it. I gush a little bit. So I have Alexis Miller and I have Hailie Anderson, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves, where they're from, and what their business is. So Alexis, why don't I start with you? Go ahead and tell us what you do and where you're at.
Hello, I'm Alexis. I'm the second generation at Cottage Connection of Maine. My formal title is Experience Curator, but I do a little bit of everything. And I'm coming to you live from beautiful East Boothbay, Maine, overlooking Lincoln Bay, which I would show you, but you wouldn't be able to see it because it's so sunny out.
Wow.
Wow, you just painted a really great picture in my brain. That was very descriptive.
Thank you.
I'm not anywhere nearly as cool. I'm based in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. My name is Hailie, and I do Airbnb arbitrage. I'm 22 years old, and I currently have 58 units.
Wow. Awesome. Alexis, how old are you? Just out of curiosity.
I'm 25, and
25.
we have just about 50 units.
Wow.
Youngsters.
So I'm 50. I'm 50 and I have less. I got to learn. I need to pay attention. Well, awesome. Well, the cool thing is that, and one of the reasons that it kind of jumped off, I mean, talking with both of you, you clearly left an impression, not just on me, but on a lot of people. And for folks that are joining us, just so you know, we had met at the VRNation conference down in Austin, and Alexis and I just started talking in general. And then Hailie actually had come in and done one of the podcast snippets for the conference, but also taught a class. So it was, and I actually sat in that class. I was very impressed with it. I learned a lot about arbitrage and how it worked because we don't do that at Cabino. So I thought it was a very interesting setup. And I've talked to Alexis further about some of her advocacy work, which really I thought spoke even higher than really just the property management piece, was the amount of advocacy work that she's doing in Maine. Which is pretty cool. So why don't we jump right into it, you guys? So first off, I heard a second generation from Alexis. So Alexis, we're going to start with you. I know that your mom is one of the OG. I think she had done an OG podcast with Annie.
Alex and Annie.
Yeah, with Alex and Annie. That's right. But interestingly enough, so now it looks like you're kind of filling shoes. Like, tell me a little bit about that. How did you, I mean, obviously your family coming into it, but how did you take a role like that?
Yeah, so I grew up in the business. Some of my earliest memories are literally spring cleaning in this house that I'm sitting in, actually. This is Captain's Quarters, which is our flagship home. Remembering, like, I think I was 4 years old, my mom teaching housekeepers how to make hospital corners on all the beds upstairs. So I've been in it for a very long time. I tell people I've had a title and a paycheck for over half my life now, which is, when you're 25, it's a long time. It feels like a long time.
I think I have socks older than that.
But I graduated college. I know, I'm a baby still, but I graduated college in 2021, and I was going to go do other things. I studied international business. The intent was to work and travel internationally. And of course, 2021 was when the world was shut down. So I got a call from mom saying, hey, our reservationist is off doing studies to become a nurse, and Maine CDC has said that she can't work in the office starting basically the 4th of July weekend, which is the second week of our season. And my mom said, if you want the job, it's yours. And I heard, we need help. And where I come from, as I'm sure is the same for the two of you, when your family says we need help, you drop everything and go. So I graduated college in May, and by the end of the month, I was working full time. By the end of June, I had done my short-term rental safety inspector certification. We're the only people in our area who have it. And I just literally have never stopped.
Is that the Breezeway certification?
Yes, it is.
Nice. I'm certified as well.
Hi, Justin. Justin Ford is my neighbor, actually, in the realm of land. So he used to be our biggest competitor. So he's quite pleased that I have taken the course as well.
Well, that's good.
I'm inspired. And she said like 5 words. That's insane.
I know. It is pretty, it's really an interesting story. But so Hailie, maybe tell us a little bit about you, because I didn't pick up in our conversations. I mean, obviously Alexis had kind of a path laid out a bit. that it was, walk the path and step into these shoes. I didn't catch how you had actually started into the arbitrage space.
Yeah. I mean, I think she's coming in, first of all, before I start, coming in and like gonna take the company to a new level. Like, you're 25, you have all these like young mindset things that I think is we are helping the older generation in the industry like reach those new levels instead of them not succeeding anymore. Like, we're coming in and helping them stay with the new wave. So I think that's so cool that you're coming in and like bringing your family business, like you're still growing it. That's awesome. I don't really have the same story. Mine's not as like cute. But I've always had like an entrepreneurial kind of spirit. I've done many things online. Like, I was making YouTube videos in elementary school selling like crafts that I made. So I've always just like had a thing. But I was in high school and I just felt like I hated school because I felt like it was such a waste of time. I was really good at school and I was really smart, but I just felt like I spent my whole day at school and then I came home and like I had no time to do anything. So I did online school. I graduated a year and a half early. And then right when I graduated, COVID hit. And at the time I was doing e-commerce and agency. So I had like an email SMS marketing agency and it was working, but I was pretty bored of it. And then I know this makes absolutely no sense because in the peak of like the world shutting down, I was like, yeah, let me start Airbnb. But I had so much time at home that I was learning a lot of different things. And I kept seeing videos about arbitrage online. And I think that's kind of when I realized that real estate doesn't have to be so intimidating and that you don't have to be super rich to start, which is what I always thought. And then I discovered arbitrage. And then from there, I just was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I got my first 3. And then after proof of concept, I mean, I just was like, yeah, I'm going to keep doing this.
So yeah, interestingly enough, so you just basically this is a generational thing too, because I know my kids also do the same, right? Like, one of my sons learned how to basically rebuild an entire car with YouTube videos.
Yep.
I didn't have that, right? When I was a kid, I had to like use the manual, like read through the manual. It didn't really tell me anything, right? But that's cool that was still the case. Now, I see that both of you have been in there and Hailie, you had made a comment about Alexis and how she's still growing. But Alexis, maybe tell us a little bit, like how is your viewpoint a little bit different maybe than your mom's, and like, how are you growing? Not just because I know this is a loaded question because I kind of know the answer, but it's one of those where it's like, how are you growing not only your business, but how are you floating all boats in your area?
Yeah. So we've always had a really deep connection with our community, of course. So my mom is from the western part of Maine originally. My dad is what we call a summer complaint. He's from Connecticut originally, and his parents were snowbirds. They actually bought the house, believe it or not, like 3 doors down this way. And when this house came up for sale in the 80s, my dad was working in real estate and he bought this house, realized he could rent it, started renting it, and then my mom came along. He went, kind of stuck in Maine now. What do we do? And started renting more. So it built out from his network and my mom's network in the area and the love that they have for this community because they grew up in small towns and they wanted small town life for their child when they eventually had one. Part of that is also, this is actually literally the room where it happened. This is where our company started almost up until I was born. This was the office in the winter. Not this room, the room behind me actually, but like we were pre-internet, so they could do everything as long as they could plug in the fax machine. And Dad had a video walking through this house saying this is what it looks like, and a little like brochure that my parents would hand draw little lobster boats and sailboats and cute little houses on that had the description of the houses. And so, the internet came and that sort of spurred the iterative spirit, I guess would be the way to describe it. So, we were one of the first in our area to, if not the first in our area, to have a website. And then we were the first that let you book online. And we were the first to put our contact info on the back of the maintenance trucks so that people could call us if they had questions, and put our logos on the side of the company vehicles. So now I'm taking that same spirit and saying, I'm seeing things that I think we can do that will make things easier for us, more efficient for the company, and create a better experience for our guests, our homeowners, our neighbors, and our friends. Because that's everybody who crosses our path falls into one of those 4 categories, whether they realize it or not. Everybody's our neighbor, everybody's our friend. Like Maine is one big small town. So we're using that information, and I'm using that information plus my business education to be able to assess and see where are the gaps, where are the things where we can do better or do differently to make life easier. And then how actually do we implement those things so it's not just change everything all at once, because you still have to stick to ethos and legacy and the core values of the company, of course. In terms of talking with family about that, my mom is very, very right-brained. I'm very, very left-brained. Like, we're all very intensely creative, but she's very much like, here's the idea, go figure it out. And I go and figure out what's it going to take? What does that mean? What's the timeline? And on the flip side of that, I can explain to her and show her, okay, this is what it looks like. Especially with AI now, I can say, here's where we are and here's where we want to be. Show me a list of all the steps that have to happen in between, because she's a visual person. So I can tell her and then I can show her and she can go.
Sure. So that's interesting. One of the things I thought was cool, like when we chatted at the conference, you were talking about, like Maine's obviously it's a different state, right? And it's a very unique state. I love Maine. It's just gorgeous there. But it's one of those where when you were sharing with me, like the advocacy aspect of credit card fees even.
Yeah.
It's one of those where I was going to tease a little bit when you were like, they're using a fax. So I was going to ask you what year that was. But realistically, it's like, that's something that I find truly interesting because, like you had shared with me that there's a lot of experiential providers, tour guides, things like that, that they don't take credit card payments. And so it's like, how do you operate in that world to try and grow? Like, how do you get your direct bookings? How do you get your guests coming in when, they can't use a credit card, or maybe they're not used to using a credit card? It's probably more appropriate.
Yeah. So we are very fortunate in our industry to have some really good payment processors and softwares that make direct booking really, really easy. And we have had our own website forever. We've done direct booking forever. So we also have the advantage of time in that and reputation. Like, we have the best reputation. We've been around the longest. So everybody knows our name. Everybody knows our logo. And we've been able to uphold that, positive vibe that goes with it by the work that we do. But when it comes to growing as the community, we have a saying in Maine, as Jamie was just alluding to, that a rising tide lifts all ships. So when someone elevates themselves or when someone grows, we all benefit. And that wasn't always the case. The verbiage has always been there, but the mentality hasn't, especially here in Boothbay. To make a long story short, the town of Boothbay and the town of Boothbay Harbor have beef because all the water for our whole peninsula is housed in the Boothbay watershed, and the town of Boothbay Harbor has to pay in for water rights. And that led to decades of not doing any joint marketing. And that didn't change until Verma, a little over 10 years ago, partnered with PBS to do Getting Away Together. And Audrey, my mom, and Melba, my nana, were down at Verma when they announced it and said, we should get in on that. And when I was 14 or I think 13 or 14, I spent the whole summer helping promote getting that show here and raising the funds to get them here that fall to film the show. And they did. But the work that we put in, we had tip jars in every store in town, literally at almost every register. We had the chambers, both chambers of commerce here, Boothbay and Boothbay Harbor, came together. A lot of local business owners said, this is going to be good for the community, we'll donate. We had a local musician make us really funny music video. I'll send you the link later, but
Nice.
A really funny music video to help fundraise that they showed at all of the showings at the Harbor Theater in town, the movie theater. So that started the drive to get us all to really recognize, to work together beyond just the 6, 10, 12 weeks in the summer when everybody's open and things are great, because we all have tourists here and we all benefit from that. It's expanded now much further than just marketing and into advocacy through not only locally through us and our fellow managers and hospitality tourism folks, but at the state level to the vacation rental professionals of Maine. And it's about showing up, not just for your industry or your section. Like, vacation rentals obviously is one thing, but a lot of the drive that we have at the state level now is focusing on hospitality as a whole. We just had 2 bills struck down, one for a local option sales tax, which in Maine is not. They're searching for the legality to actually make that an option, and one for single-use plastics in toiletries that hotels and some rentals and even some campgrounds provide. So guess what? all the hotels, all the rentals, all the campgrounds, and the ski resorts and everybody all got together and said, we get that this is a good idea, or it's in good faith, but it's ill-informed.
Right.
And so we all pushed together to make sure that we all survive, especially here where hospitality is the largest economic driver in the state of Maine.
That is so interesting because it's like, it's kind of a lot to deal with just the company. Like, you know, I'm doing marketing, right? And I'm like trying to like, how the hell do I get people to come and book? Like, how do I get them to come to Idaho? How do I get them to come to Yellowstone? And I'm realizing like, I can't market Yellowstone. I can't market Idaho, right? But here you are, you know, working with, you know, different industries to try and get more of a marketing base for the state of Maine and your local area, which I think is just, it speaks to your energy level, which I think is, you know, which is great. I mean, honest to God, I wish I had half your energy. I really do.
You need to write a book. I'm inspired.
Yeah. I mean, it's very, there you go, right? There you go. Taking over the world. Next thing she's going to be talking about coming to the United States, right? Like everybody. But yeah, no, that's terrific. That's a really cool story, Alexis. It's not something, it's just not something you hear very often. You know, it doesn't matter if it's what age you are. It just doesn't happen very often at all. So that's really neat. All right, Hailie. So let's hear about it. Like, you know, tell me about how when you started getting in and you're just like, I want to grow this. I know you talked about it in your class a little bit, which you did a great job in, by the way. I really enjoyed it. I thought that the use of technology, you know, similar to what Alexis is talking about, but the use of technology that you brought for your company specifically, I thought was really unique. Like how are you still building? How are you gaining homeowners? How is that working with the technology setup that you have?
Yeah, I think they definitely go. They're kind of separate. They're together, but they're separate. I think the tech is more so on like the back end of like building those systems and building those operations and kind of allowing me to automate as much of it as possible. And then whatever can't be automated, I'm then delegating. But in terms of how am I getting units, I have a full-time team now. They do over 40 hours a week of cold calling and email outreach. So it's all in-house. I'm a very big advocate for doing everything in-house. So I have my own internal team that does all the cold calling, all the outreach. So on average, I'm seeing like 25 to 50 good leads a week. And obviously I can't take 25 to 50 leads a week. So I'm then, helping others or friends, family, students in whatever way I can. I think just spending time, since it's such a numbers game, like you have to go through the volume. If you're just outreaching to 100 people a day, we all know that you're not going to have any luck for a very long time. So I think it's more just like a numbers thing, but I'm very big on find someone to do it that can do it better than you and have them do it full time. So I have a team that's working all week to find me leads.
So are you doing the closes then? Or is that somebody, like a BD person that's doing the closes for you?
Yeah. So I definitely could have someone do the closes, but I'm like to be involved. I like to outsource. So I'm not stressed out and spending time doing those things that can be outsourced, but I still very much love the building of it and being involved. So I do all the closing still. I love it. To me, it's like a game. I'm like, okay, I'm about to close this 20 unit deal. Hold on, give me a second. So I still do all the closes, and essentially they funnel through obviously getting that approval if it's even allowed. And then I come in and I negotiate either rent concessions, lease terms, all of that good stuff, and how many units. But yeah, I do all the closing.
Gotcha. So what would you say from a tech perspective is probably your biggest helper in regards to just growing? I mean, what technology would you say, man, this is like mission critical. Everybody should have this.
I know you said one, but I think I have two, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of growing, because I know you said growing, I would say dynamic pricing was kind of like something cool to have, and you were ahead of, the trends before, but now I think it's a non-negotiable. If you're not using dynamic pricing, you're just going to get beat out by your competition. It's not something that you could have. It's something you need to have now. So I use Price Labs, but there's so many out there that are great. I just think having a dynamic pricing software and then also a revenue manager I recently just hired one actually because I was trying to do it all myself, and I just realized I'm not that skilled in it and that there's people that do this for a living. So I hired someone. But I would say a pricing software, revenue management, and then a PMS. I know it's very basic, but there is no way to manage everything. I mean, there probably is a way, but you might go
Not
in.
an easy way.
Yeah, not an easy way.
Yeah, it's not an easy way.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can try it on paper and Excel. It doesn't work real well.
Yeah. So a PMS, like if you're not using a PMS, I feel bad for you because no way you're okay.
Right. Right. And I think it's interesting. So obviously both you guys already know this, but VRNation also caters to RBOs, right? So people who are doing their own. And I do that aspect is really important to call out, I think, for a lot of folks, especially if they're tuning in to kind of learn about some property management stuff. But the reality of how much, I'm not going to say dependency, but really you do become very dependent upon some of these systems because of the nature of how the industry is flowing, right? I mean, I was just talking with Dana from California, and we were we were talking about some of our guest experiences so far this summer. But just trying to keep track of everybody coming in. I mean, right now we're in Idaho, we're 100% occupied right now. So it's like it's great. It's awesome. However, trying to keep track who's coming where are my cleaners at, where's my maintenance people at, who's answering this guest, what's this complaint for, all this kind of fun stuff, and just being able to keep track of it in one ecosystem. I can't imagine, even with just one property, it would be tough. So
you have to have
awesome. Yeah, that's right. It's nice to have a team. Yeah, it is nice to have a team. Kind of expensive to have a team, but it's nice to have a team. So I guess I would just say, on that vein, like, here's just a general question. Like, Alexis, when you think of the difference between like RBO and when they're doing it by themselves and you have 40, 50 properties, like what's the biggest effect in your mind, especially in Maine? It's a bit different. I don't know. Like I've stayed at RBOs when I've been out east. In fact, I think up in Bar Harbor, but Bahaba. I have to say it right. Otherwise, nobody knows what I'm talking about. I get corrected constantly. Beautiful area, beautiful town. But again, it's like I've stayed at places, on the coast up there. But it's from a management perspective, when you only have a handful or you have 40, 50, like what's the biggest keys to success? Like when you're in that growth mode.
Yeah. So the smallest our company has ever been was year one, and we had about 10 homes. Obviously, I wasn't around for this, but I have the history and I have all of the pieces of paper from back then.
Right. That's right. In a box.
And at the end of the first season, my parents had picked up to 75 houses.
Wow.
They started booking for the next year with 75. And the most we've ever had is 180. And every year it goes up and down. Of course, COVID, everybody wanted to move to Maine. So I had a lot of homeowners who retired here, moved here, or when the market was really, really hot, sold their houses
Right.
for 3, 4, 5 times the value of what everyone expected them to be. Congrats to anybody who managed to do the 5 times, because holy cow.
Yeah, right.
But what we learned through that, our best years for making money have not always been our best years for our wellness and mental health, and the stress levels. When it comes to growth, what you have to have is a really good system in place. You have to know what you want for your company, what you want to provide as part of that, like not just I want to have this kind of sheets, or I want to provide, cutesy little rubber duckies or whatever. You need to know, I want to provide this kind of experience for the people who are coming in. And you need to also think about, what are you providing to your community to help? Because your community will help you grow so much faster than any marketing that you can pay for if you treat your communities right. I would say, to go off of the technology question, in addition to a really good PMS, you need a direct booking website, especially even if you're an RBO, you really need a direct booking site.
Right.
It will save you so many headaches. And I would say nowadays, AI is your friend. AI is your best friend, but you have to train it right. That comes back to, you really have to know yourself, you have to know your company, and you have to know your goals. Everything else can be fluid, but if you know where you want to be and you know sort of a structure of how you want to do things. Like that structure can change, but get yourself in a place where you can start on one path and just start going.
Oh, that makes sense. I mean, I think AI is going to take my job and steal my brain, but
I don't think it will. I think it'll help you do.
My chat GPT knows me better than I know myself.
That's right. I think that's a generational thing. I don't know, Sean, but yeah, no, I love it. I love AI. Honest to God, I do. It's like I always laugh because everybody starts freaking about AI, and I'm pretty confident that when the calculator was invented, it was the same thing, right? It's just like when the computer was invented, it's the same thing. Oh my God, it's gonna take over the world.
I think
it's gonna
it'll be
change
all
the
right.
world.
Like, do you ever think that maybe there were people when the wheel was invented that were like, who needs the wheel?
That's right. It's the devil. The devil created the wheel. What are you talking about?
The truth is that I think AI is the future of hospitality, in that AI is going to be able to do so much of the minutia. Like, I mean, if you've got 25 houses checking in on a Friday afternoon, as we often do, or more, and even a quarter of those guests are texting you saying, I can't find the Wi-Fi password, even though it's right there in front of you. Think about how much time you're spending just answering those texts.
Right.
When you automate them, or when you have AI that can help with that, you're freeing up that time, but you're also freeing up the mental space so that instead of thinking, oh God, where's the Wi-Fi password? You can think about, well, if that information isn't in a clear enough place for people, how can we do it better? It's going to let you take your time and effort and put it into putting the heart back into hospitality and really honing in on the experience that people have with you and with your company, instead of all of these little itsy bitsy things that we all get bogged down by.
Yeah, no, that's a good call out. That's a really good call out.
And I think it's interesting too, because like I have a team of like virtual assistants that basically do all the day-to-day things. But essentially the reason I hired them was because I caught myself doing those daily mundane things that I was like, someone else should be doing this. Like I need to focus on scaling or making the company better, closing more deals and fixing these little issues. But now it's to the point where it's like, okay, my VAs are so trained and they're basically like as close to my brain as possible, and they love the business almost as much as I do. I can also free up their time doing those things because now their time is more valuable, and AI can now go do those things that they were wasting their time doing. So I think it's cool to see how it's coming in. And I think chat, like when we think of AI, we think of chats only, but I think AI is going to help us in a lot more ways than just the basic chatting back and forth with guests. And I think we're starting to see that with, the softwares in the industry rolling out different AI things that aren't just chat related. So I'm excited to see like how it comes in and where it frees up that time for us and our team so we can keep scaling.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I have another podcast schedule, and maybe you guys, I'm almost positive both of you went to this class. Did you guys go to Jen Boyle's class on AI usage for building listing content
Oh, but I have the AI. She sent it to me ahead of time.
Did she? Okay. So if you didn't, this was the one class that I wanted to go to and I didn't go to because I was doing podcasts at the conference. But I have a podcast with her directly. I met with her last week, and the discussion on how to use AI from a business development aspect between marketing and being able to find, like I use deep research so much when it comes to AI and marketing that, I can say, I need a competitor analysis of the top 10 competitors in Fort Lauderdale. And I could say, I want to know who's doing arbitrage. I want to know who's doing midterm rentals. I want to know who's doing this. Tell me what the revenue structure is. Tell me what their management plans look like, what kind of percentages they're pulling, what kind of fees they have. And, it takes a good overnight probably, but it'll pull and give me all that breakdown. And I can use that, plug it back into more prompts and say, okay, what are the 5 ways I can attack these guys and be successful in a direct email strategy? And then it will say here, and then it'll actually build out those points. So, I mean, it's actually pretty incredible what can be done with AI, but I think you have to really know, like, it's a really great tool, but it's not gonna solve the world's problems on its own.
No.
Unfortunate. Right. Maybe it's fortunately, not unfortunately, fortunately.
It's all about perspective.
So Hailee, Yeah, right, exactly. I saw Terminator. Well, yeah, I mean, ultimately, so Hailie, I guess same kind of question for you. I mean, when you first started out and you were building up, how did you know your points of scale? I think that's actually a really interesting question I never asked you, was like, because you said, like, I brought my VAs in, I brought my cold callers in, I delegate to certain people. Like, how did you pick and choose from your very first property to where you're at today on your points of scaling?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. I love that question. I think I scaled relatively quickly with like my experience was actively happening. The only reason I had knowledge was because I literally was doing it. And so like my first units was 3, and then 2 months later I was at 13. So I mean that was like very, very quickly, and I was learning a lot. I was in 2 separate markets. My first deal was 3, my second deal was 10. So it was very fast and very overwhelming, but I was doing everything. Like I staged them all myself. Like all 3 I staged, all 10 I staged. Like I was in the nitty gritty. I was creating the listings. I was, responding to all the guests. I was doing everything. And I think that was very important because I knew the business better than anyone, and I know every single crack and crevice of it. So it wasn't until I had about 15 properties that I was like, okay, I want to keep scaling, but emotionally and physically and mentally, I'm so burnt out that I don't think I'm capable of getting more units because I don't think I could do it. Like I actually was like, I don't have it in me. It's too much. I'm too overwhelmed. How do people do it? And I was like, okay, it's not a lack of me not being good enough. It's just I need a team and I need help. So who can I hire to help me get to those goals? And that's when I hired my first VA. And essentially I just took everything in here and was like, listen, here it is. And
let me pause you just for a second, because I think, some of our listeners don't really know what a VA is.
Okay.
So can you give us just a brief on what a VA is and how you're using it?
Yeah. So VA just stands for a virtual assistant. So essentially think of like a co-host. That might be more commonly, like the viewers, you guys may know what a co-host is more than a VA, but it's literally the same thing. My VAs are my co-hosts on my Airbnb account. But essentially I just built my team all in-house for a more affordable price than going off and hiring a property management company. So instead of someone coming in and taking 20-25%, I have everyone in-house that I pay. Like, for example, I have a team of 6 VAs or co-host that I pay $2,500 a month total for all of them. They live overseas, and that's me paying them like more than what they even wanted.
Yep.
So they're getting paid really well, but it's just an in-house VA co-host basically. But
so
essentially
what do they do? Like,
yeah,
when you say co-host, I mean, go ahead.
I have 6 VAs currently, and they literally do everything. So when I got to 15, I was like, okay, I need help. So what do I need to outsource first? I basically just figured out like where I was spending the most of my time that I thought I could spend doing something else that would be more higher ROI. So in the beginning, that was responding to the guests and also managing the cleaning team. So my first VAs, that's what they did. They responded to all of my guests. They responded to any inquiries. They helped manage the cleaners and they helped manage the maintenance team. And then after that, as I continued to scale units, once they got to that point of like, okay, I need support or I can't work this whole shift because there's too many units, that's when I brought in another VA. So now I have 6 and they do everything from responding to the guests. They still manage the maintenance, still manage the cleaners. If any restock needs to be ordered, they go in, they order it. And then I have the second half of the business, which would be more so on the scaling side with the VAs who do the cold calling, the email outreach to help me scale. But yeah, essentially I now am just focused on how to make it better, how to make my team be extra supported, and ways that we can stay ahead of the curve as a company so that we can continue to scale. So yeah, it's a dream team.
Interesting. That's a very interesting cut of the apple, because so I've been scaling businesses for a long time. And it sounds like you effectively are like cloning yourself in a VA role. So a VA, so when you have your listing, is it still under your business name, under your personal name, or is it under the co-host name?
It's under my business name. So my
Okay.
Airbnb account is my company. And then I have my VAs added as co-hosts onto my account. But essentially, like, yes, they're VAs, but they are like me. I'm very strategic with who I hire, and like the training is a lot. Like, just because you've been a VA before, like being a VA for a Airbnb or short-term rental company is a lot of work. It is a lot.
Yeah.
And essentially, just because you can run my business good doesn't mean you can run Alexis's good. Just because we both
Right.
do similar things does not mean it's going to be the same thing. So the training is a lot, and a lot of people will be interested, and then their first 2 days, they're like, no, this is not for me. So I think like really pouring into your team and training them to basically be you. No one is ever going to care as much about your business than you do, but I think my team almost does. Like, they're just right there that they might
Right.
care just as much as I do. But that's because I pour into them. I care about my team, and I think they know that I care. And I show up every single day. If they need anything, I'm there. So as much as I preach like automate, delegate, you still have to show up as a leader and be there for your team, or else they're not going to care. They're going to be like, okay, Hailee doesn't care. I have a simple question and Hailey's not answering. Why should I care? So I think showing
Right.
up as a leader, like, that's why it's been so successful, because they feel cared for, they feel supported, and they know that I'm actively trying to grow. And if I grow, they grow. So it goes hand in hand.
No, that's interesting. That's yeah, it's a very interesting way of going about it for sure. And obviously, clearly it works for you. So that's terrific. That's terrific. So I'm just curious too. So you're saying like you went from like your first deal, you had 3, your next deal, you picked up another 10. When you say deals, are you talking like condos or anything like that? Like what, how do you get a block of properties like that?
Yeah, so my portfolio is actually primarily apartments, so in apartment complexes. So when I say 10, that means like 10 apartments in the same building.
10 units. Gotcha.
10 units, yeah. So my biggest one that I've done was 22 at once. And I know that sounds like people are like, a lot of people are like, why are you getting so many in the same building? How do you know if it's going to work? On the latter, it's just like a hotel. Like, if the market
Right.
supports and the demand is there, it's literally the same thing as a hotel. It's just you're doing it yourself. So yeah, my portfolio is primarily apartments, but I do have single family properties as well.
Is that a different, I'm assuming that's a different owner acquisition strategy between the apartments and the homeowners though.
Slightly, you're talking to different types of people. Like, you're talking to a property manager or you're talking to a landlord. So I think the way you approach them is slightly different, but essentially the business model is the same, whether it's a house or an apartment. So the pitch is relatively the same. Maybe just some of the words are a bit different.
Gotcha. And that would be the difference with the arbitrage aspect. So like you have
Yeah.
somebody who owns a building might be the landlord over 20 apartments. And then they'll just say, yeah, if you're going to guarantee me a certain amount of income for all of them, then sure, you can arbitrage that. That's an interesting model. I didn't know that.
Yep.
I didn't know that. Alexis, do you guys do that up in Maine at all? I don't know if is arbitrage something that happens up in Maine? I know you don't personally, but I just didn't know if they do that up in Maine.
Sort of, but I don't think anybody thinks of it as arbitrage. Like, yes, there are groups that do there are very few places in Maine, first off, that have like blocks of apartments or big condo complexes, right? Like, it's just, unless you're in like a ski area where you have condos, or you're in a city where you have apartments, it's a very different beast. I do know people who do almost exclusively condos. I know people who do almost exclusively apartments, but the mentality and the way they treat their businesses is very, very similar, if not the same, to how we treat ours, as only doing whole homes.
I
Okay.
think that's a big
Okay.
misconception too, is that like arbitrage is like this completely different thing, which, like, in my mind, we're doing the same thing. It's kind of just like a different label of like, okay,
Yeah.
it's the same thing. It's just everyone has such a negative connotation when you mention the word arbitrage, but I'm like, I'm doing the same thing you're doing. I just don't own it, and I just
Oh, that's
quit it.
cool. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just, to me,
Yeah.
it's just an interesting model, because I know my pain points, right? And some of my pain points are, we're having a down summer. Actually, our summer's doing fine. I shouldn't say it. I have to be very clear in how I say this because I'm being recorded. Our summer is doing well. ADRs are down across the board. Industry-wide ADRs are down. Our occupancies are up a little bit. Our lead times are garbage, 30 days or less for most of it. I mean, it's bad. It used to be 180 days 2 years ago.
Wow.
And now it's like half my stuff. I was open. June was open in May. June is booked now. Like, I mean, of course, now it's almost over. But my point being, like, how balancing that risk when, I could talk to a homeowner and say, like, look, there's nothing I can do to control this. I can tell them about the market. I can tell them about what, indicators are looking like and forecasts. But the risk is really sitting on their shoulders. But when you set up the arbitrage, are you actually setting up a agreement with the landlord? I'm assuming you can't go and have the same conversation of the market didn't really do very well. Sorry. How does that work?
You take all the risks through arbitrage because they're essentially, the property managers are not involved. The landlords are not involved. They're just allowing you to use their actual property, but they're not making any money off of you outside of just a normal tenant rent. And maybe some extra commission if you come in and help them reach their goals of corporate leasing or, lease renewals for the year. But other than that, they don't care if you make money or not. When that first of the month comes, you have to pay rent, no matter if you had 0 bookings or you had 30 bookings. So that is definitely, the risk is all on you. I mean, everything is risky. So I was just like, I'm very confident and I'm very strategic with the deals I do sign, that I'm like, okay, I can do as much market research and deal analysis as I want, but it's either going to work or it's not going to work. And if it doesn't, then I'll pivot and try something else, or, there's so many ways to make it work. But yeah, the risk does fall on you as arbitrage 100%.
Do you do midterms as well over there, or are you guys just short term?
My primary focus is short term. If a midterm offer comes in and it's good, 100% I'll take it. But it's primarily short term, unless an insurance company comes in or it's just a good inquiry for a midterm, I will allow it.
Gotcha. Alexis, do you do midterms up by you, or is it all short term?
It's, I think, what the industry would all consider short term, because our season is so short here. Like this year, from opening day to closing day is 23 weeks of rentals. So for us, like, if you think about that, that's just shy of 6 months, which is sort of like the outer edge of a midterm stay. For us, anything that's really longer than a month goes into a similar mental category, and in terms of like the workload and things, as what you would expect from a midterm stay. But we don't actively seek, like, there's not a ton of people who are coming for 3 months or 6 months who are going to pay the same amount as someone who's coming for 1 to 4 to even 6 weeks.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. They wouldn't. I mean,
yeah,
I've seen some of the midterm payouts in Florida, like down like southern Florida. I can see that there's definitely some upside there, but the property values are so incredibly high that it's like you almost have to, just to make any money off it, to offer, to ask so much. It's interesting. All right, so we're gonna switch gears a little bit, maybe I'm just gonna ask the same question over and over again because I just keep asking these questions. So, but I mean, so we talked about your guys' business, right? And both of you are obviously, I'm not going to say beyond your years, but seriously, I really don't know many folks your age that are as savvy as the two of you. So it's been a real treat for me. Your lifestyle, man. I know what I was doing when I was your age, and it sure wasn't that. I mean, I wish I was, but I wasn't. So when I think about it, I'm just like, obviously, Hailie, you're a big content creator on social media, right? So I know that you're all over the place. Right. And Alexis, I don't follow you on social media, but I know just from staying in touch with you that you're all over the place as well, but mostly contained within Maine, or at least the Northeast. And then you're always seeming to be at the state legislature or something like that. So when you're balancing your guys' lifestyle, right? And I say this because it's not a loaded question. It's my assumption. It's like, where do you see yourselves in 10 years? Are you going to stick around the industry, or are you taking over VRBO, or am I looking at VRBO Airbnb CEOs here, or what's the story?
Alexis, I think you should go first on this one, because you're going to blow us away, and then I'll underwhelm everyone with my answer.
Give you a chance to formulate.
I'm like, let me think.
That is not the lifestyle question I really thought you were going to ask. I'm blessed that it's not.
They're going to dig too deep. I mean, come on.
No, I kind of laugh because I have been asked consistently for the last 10 years if the end result for me is to take over the family business. Like, it's the question that I get asked maybe second most frequently by people in our industry and like just business people who I know in general. And it is one of the questions that I loathe, but I, especially when you're at a conference and you get asked it over and over and over again, I will answer it here. I see myself still doing this, but I see myself doing it in a slightly different way. Like, the thing that I love the most, as you, I'm sure, can tell, is the community connection and the relationships that I get to build. Like, we have homeowners and we have guests who have been staying with us since I was a baby. Like, literally, we have guests who come back every year who held me like weeks after I was born. And now I'm getting pictures of their kids and their grandkids and, their pets, and not just while they're on vacation. Literally, I got a text message a couple of months ago from one of our guests being like, look at my new grandbaby. And I was like, how many people get to have those kinds of relationships? And they, especially now that I'm old enough to drink, I go into houses and fix things for people like Wi-Fi and stuff. And we have guests literally who are like, I held you when you were a baby and now you're old enough to have a glass of wine with us while you fix the Wi-Fi. Would you like a glass of wine? So I would like to be able to continue having
Which of course you say, no, I'm working.
Yeah. Let me finish this first.
Hold on a minute. Yeah. I can't do it quite yet.
Let me finish this first and then we'll sit and chat. But I love being able to turn around and leverage that when our community needs it or when someone needs help. Like, that to me is the essence of the main spirit, is being willing to roll up your sleeves and work, especially when you see someone who needs help, whether they're your classmate or your competition or just someone literally who comes in off the street. We had that happen last week in our office. Someone came in because they couldn't check into the house that they had booked. Like, they had booked a room that was converted from a motel into like a condo, and office is closed. Doors are locked. Lights are off. No sign on the door. Phone lines disconnected. We were the next driveway. Literally, like, they'd been driving for hours and hours and hours to be on Antiques Roadshow the next day. They drove from Canada over 10 hours. And they got there and couldn't get in. And they rolled into our office. It was after hours. Our doors were locked. Everything was closed. I see these people standing at our front door going, why are people just like standing at our front door? They're not looking in. They're not knocking. They're not calling the number that's on the sign. So like, Finally, we go out and say, what's going on? And we help them find somewhere else to stay. It wasn't with us because they were staying for one night and that's not what we do. But I helped them find the last hotel room in literally the last hotel in town that would allow you to stay for one night that time, like that chunk of time. And you know what I woke up to on Saturday? A 5-star review from them. They never bought anything from us. And what the review says is basically, we were lost and confused and very, very stressed. And Audrey and Alexis opened up the doors and helped us when we needed it. That's what I want to be doing in 10 years.
Cry.
That's awesome.
I love that.
I mean, it's so wholesome. I mean, me in 10 years later, I'm on a beach. I'm like sunburned, passed out, like hanging on. But you're helping people. I love that. But no, that's good. That's cool, dude. I mean, it's definitely an awesome story, and it's, those are the kind of things that I think really stand out in, as far as property managers are concerned. But I think that, it's one thing to be in business, but it's nothing to be a good human, and I think that's really what you're saying is like, hey man, I want to be a good human because there's good business in being a good human. 100%. All right, Hailie.
You'll have success in anything as long as you're a good human. So whatever you decide to do, if it's not this, I'm sure you'll be, that was not coming out as I wanted it to. You will never worry about finding success. That's what I meant to say.
That's right. Success will find you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
and let's be clear, I intend on staying in this space. Yeah. I'd like to do more than just our little Booth Bay community, and I haven't decided where that's going to take me yet, but this is
well, if you take over Airbnb, can you lift some of these ridiculous things that are going on?
Oh, absolutely. Well, see, in 11 years, I'll be old enough to run for president, and then we won't have to have any of these problems.
That's where I was thinking she was going to take this. I was like, she's going to come on here and say she's running for president, and I'm going to be Like, girl, I will vote for you, but I will not be doing that.
All right, Hailie, what are you going to do? I want to know, because I have a thought of what it might be, but I'm not going to lead down that path.
It's really hard for me to think 10 years out in advance because honestly, I feel like every day, like an opportunity comes and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to do that. So I don't really know, but I have absolutely fallen in love with the hospitality industry. I think the people, the community has been a very consistent thing. And I've never been in a community like this before. So I would love to stay in it in some capacity. I see myself doing two things and they go hand in hand. One, I would really love to stay obviously in real estate. I started Arbitrage as a tool to get me into other real estate ventures to build that generational wealth. So I would love to do like real estate development. I think I would like thinking of doing that just like makes me so excited. I would love to build something, whether it be a boutique hotel, whether it be an apartment complex. Like I would love to build something. And then also with my knowledge and management, you know, maybe not only build it, but be the property manager running it and then, you know, rent it out long term, do Airbnb, whatever. And then I also see myself, I would love to do public speaking, like officially, like keynote speaker, like is my dream. Like I just love helping people. And I think in today's day and age, there's a lot of stuff. Everyone feels like they're running out of time or that, you know, they came from something that maybe I didn't come from or you didn't come from, and that a lot of people can't see themselves being successful. And I think since I am so young, like I would love to be that face for those people who maybe don't have role models like that in their lives. And I just would love to take speaking and like travel and like just help people and share as much as the knowledge I have, because I am still so young. Like I don't know what I'm going to be doing, but I do plan on taking my audience and community along with me, whether it is development or it is whatever, like I'm going to bring them along. So yeah, that's where I see myself.
Awesome. Well, that's cool too. I mean, both you guys, those are great answers. I mean, they really are. I was just teasing, but it's like, I knew travel was involved somehow, some way.
Yeah, still traveling,
that's your big thing. I can see you always traveling. But you know, it's been an hour, you guys, and I promise you, I try to keep it down to 45. But it's just like, it's a great conversation. And I sincerely appreciate you guys coming out. I really do. I wish the best for both of you. I have no doubt in my mind that things are going to go absolutely swimmingly for you. And someday maybe you'll hire me. I don't know. Let's hope, right? So, but
you're already hired. Let's go.
You're right. You're hired. Yeah. Somebody needs to go clean the toilet. Get in there. Yeah, I get it. No, but again, thank you so much for joining us. And I know this podcast is going to reach to a lot of people because it really is truly an interesting situation. And I was just lucky enough to run into both of you at the same time. So I think that's definitely a blessing for me.
Thank you.
I'll put a wrapper on it. So folks, for those listening, again, you know, between Alexis and Hailee, I really appreciate their time. And I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. If you have, please subscribe if you're on YouTube, or if you are following on Spotify, or if you are following on Apple Podcasts, which I still can't wrap my head around, but now we're getting official. We're in all sorts of different areas, but more to come either way. And we'll probably have you guys back on at some point in time in the future. I have no doubt. So thanks again. And thanks for joining us.
Welcome y'all to the VRNation Station. We're diving deep into vacation rental sensations. From management tips to the latest creation, join us each week for some sparkle and conversation. VRNation Station, tune in and feel the thrill. We're talking